Waterfront Toronto's board has voted unanimously that it will continue with Sidewalk Labs' proposed smart city. Stephen Diamond is chair of Waterfront Toronto. He joins us now. Thanks for being here.
Okay, my pleasure.
So this is a milestone, but just put it into context, because this is a big project. It's a multi-year project. What does this mean today?
Well, what's happened over the last few months is we've raised certain threshold issues, and this is, in essence, a resolution of those threshold issues that will allow us to move forward to the next stage of discussion. There still will be further consultation, further amendments to the project, and we're hoping for an optimistic result when it comes up again in March.
So one of the big questions was the size, the scope, as it were, of the actual project, and one of the pieces of that was the amount of land in question. It's shrunk considerably. Now, do you view it that way, or do you just view it as less than Sidewalk had hoped?
I think the size of the initial expectation from Sidewalk has dramatically changed. They did ask for a 190-acre project that they wanted to set their eyes on, and we've been very pleased, and actually we're very appreciative of their efforts to compromise with us and come back to Quayside as a first stage in this project, which will allow us to concentrate on 12 acres, which we think is the right way to go.
And what will happen? Therefore, we take their master development plan, which is big and ambitious. How does that change because we've changed the scale of the project?
Well, what we think will happen is that the scale of the project is less, but we'll still be able to create a very innovative development for these lands, which will be hopefully climate positive and will be precedent setting in terms of the innovation that it will still produce. And also in terms of the digital and privacy issues, again, we're hoping that this will be a precedent setting in terms of allowing our governments, together with Waterfront Toronto, to come forward with appropriate protections for people with respect to that important issue.
That was, maybe not surprising in retrospect, but it took a lot of us by surprise. That became the real flashpoint around this whole project. Still is, right? Data privacy, how we manage it, what do the new technologies mean? That's part of the ongoing consultation now, or have you reached any kind of beginning initial conclusions over any of that?
We've made significant progress at the beginning of where we're headed with respect to digital innovation. We still have a long way to go. This is an issue that we face as a society, dealing with digital innovation and privacy, whether or not Sidewalk proceeds or not. But this has allowed us to move forward, and again, to using Sidewalk to act as a catalyst to move us forward and set precedents of how the public can be protected into the future. And we've talked about making sure that digital innovation will be democratically accountable.
And what are some of those things, if people are curious about what sort of the beginning of your thinking around how we make sure that we're protected and people are accountable? What does that look like?
So one of the aspects that we've looked at that we think would help a lot is that when I say democratically accountable, what I'm referring to is the fact that there may be a requirement that wherever there are public spaces where data may be collected, that there would be a mandatory requirement to hold public meetings in advance with a justification as to what the data is collected, how it will be used, and where it will be stored, and that would go through a public process with government approval before it would be allowed to proceed. So that would be an innovation that doesn't exist today, and one that we hope we'll be able to secure for the future.
One of the aspects that you did sort of start to get at here is placing value on the land here. How do you arrive at that, and what does the kind of revenue sharing look like between Quayside and Waterfront, or Sidewalk?
In terms of the value, what we have said is that we had an appraisal done based on the zoning as it takes place today on those lands. So first of all, there is a requirement for affordable housing in the zoning bylaw, so that has to be taken into account in any appraisal. And the number that we've agreed to in terms of the fair market value of this parcel is $590 million. Now, having said that, Waterfront Toronto in the past has made investments in particular projects where those land values can get discounted for environmental sustainability or, for example, innovative ideas with respect to affordable housing. So we will negotiate and discuss those issues and arrive at a final number. And again, that number will be adjusted based on an appraisal at the time of sale.
What about the transit piece of this? I mean, you were clear that there are some things that were beyond the scope of your organization, but what kind of assurances can you give to Sidewalk that you will get where they want you to be?
In terms of transit, there's nothing more than we would like than to have further public transit. The new Ontario line will help. There is a potential stop near the waterfront that's now being proposed. And we would love to have an LRT from Union Station to the lands. We have explained to Sidewalk, and they've accepted the fact that we cannot control funding for that LRT line, and they've acknowledged that. And they will have to make a determination in moving forward whether or not the capital commitments to transit at the time we move forward, as we move forward in March, whether or not that's satisfactory to them.
So what does it look like from here, Steve, in terms of the next leg of the project, how much involvement, public consultation there will be? What's next?
That there will be revisions that have been made based on the 12-acre project. We will now have to evaluate the innovations that they've proposed. There are many, many innovations. They will go through a consultative process with the public and with experts that we will have on retainer to see whether or not they work and how they work. And then that will come back for further view and discussion. And what we're hoping at the end of the day, that they work. We're hoping that any differences we have can be resolved. And that, again, we'll be able to come back to the public and the community with a project that can act as a catalyst to help us move forward and make Toronto and the province and this country leaders in terms of the innovation economy. But again, we have a long way to go to get there, but we're optimistic that we will get there.
One of the reasons that you're great for the job that you're in is that you know how to do these projects. So you also know that they don't run according to plan. Anybody who's even renovated a garage knows you better be flexible and be willing to adjust as you go along. How much room is there in a project as big and ambitious as this is to actually, and the one that requires public consultation and sign off, et cetera, to go with the flow a little bit, the way these projects require?
I think it's a good point, and I think it's something that is required, and we need patience from the public. It's a good point because what we have to understand is cities generally outlive the human life. They will be here for a long period of time, and Toronto is a great city. So we have to be careful and make sure that we get it right for the future.
It's great to have you here today.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Stephen Diamond is chair of Waterfront Toronto.